are these people?
So first off, Dissent and Bloom's in chat right now. She wrote an article this week, or actually, 6 days ago. I think she's written 4 articles since then. Just a machine in putting out content about really important topics. But I think that part of what she wrote here got missed and lost in the sauce this week. And she's been talking about election integrity and about our machines. And her article about the machines, I believe, is one of the articles that I had found early on, talking about this guy, Jack Cobb, and how his certification was bogus and that he was getting the testing software from the companies that he was allegedly supposed to be certifying and testing, which is totally dirty. Well, there's a follow-up to that, and that is that Dominion voting systems, which very famously popped up in the 2020 election and sued Fox News and got a massive settlement out of Fox News. Dominion voting systems was sold. So I'm not going to read this whole article, but I encourage everyone to. I'm going to go into a good portion of it. And I want to talk about the oligarch that bought this company, and the software, and a little bit of what Dissent and Bloom thinks their intent is, because she thinks that she's figured out what their game is. So the subtitle is that they told us elections were rigged. Then they cloned stolen voting software in 2020. Then they bought the voting machines. All right. Scott Leyendecker, a longtime Republican operative with deep ties to Trump's political network, already controlled the only digital poll books that are literally just giant iPads used to verify voter identities across much of the country through his company, No Inc. Knowing that alone gave him massive influence over who even gets in the door to vote in many places. Where used, it gives his company gatekeeper powers, deciding who gets in and who doesn't. Now, after acquiring Dominion voting systems, which he is renaming to Liberty Vote, my God, he controls the voting machines used in over half of the United States. Nothing to see here. In his first official statement after acquiring Dominion, Leyendecker pledged that he will follow Trump's executive order preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections from March. This is how autocracies are built. Control the rules, control the tools, declare the outcome. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a business model. So, what are we talking about? By the way, this is Scott Leyendecker. Looks a little like Dr. Evil, doesn't he? The SAVE Act 2.0. Despite the name, that executive order was not written to uphold election integrity, as it usually happens. The name in the acronym is written to undermine exactly what it's designed to prevent. Despite the name, again, it's just the infamous SAVE Act rebranded and shoved through the Oval Office because they haven't been able to pass it through Congress. Leyendecker is eager to be the first in line to enforce Trump's new unconstitutional rules from this order into our elections, stating that they have to have a passport, some ID compliant with the requirements of the Real ID Act, an official military ID card that indicates that the applicant is a citizen of the U.S., or a valid federal or state government issued photo ID only if such ID indicates that the applicant is a citizen or if such ID is otherwise accompanied by proof of citizenship. Never mind that the fact that a federal judge has blocked parts of this already and that election experts say it's unconstitutional. See, the SAVE Act gets a lot of attention in the media because it'll take away eligible Americans' ability to vote because it requires in-person registration with specific documentary proof of citizenship that millions of Americans don't have. State ID alone isn't enough. 47 states don't print U.S. citizen anywhere on them. 21.8 million people don't have access to a secondary form of identification. That is 9% of eligible voters. Trump's executive order also says that the Department of Homeland Security, working with DOJ, will review every state's voter registration list. And we've seen massive voter roll purges that specifically targeted African Americans, and anyone with the last name of Williams was purged in some counties in Georgia. They are instructed to analyze it, cross-check it against federal immigration databases, demand state records, even by subpoena if necessary. And if election boards don't comply and give them your private voting records, they'll try to sue for them, possibly even criminally charge them, and they filed lawsuits already. That's a problem. They say it's to check for consistency with federal law. But in practice, this is about building a federal system to purge voters. That's why they're pushing so hard for states to give the federal government their voter rolls. And she documents Georgia, but not just there. Roll purges are a practice that the GOP has done over and over again in Georgia, Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida, Texas, and more. And again, there are links with receipts and documentation of this happening in each one of these states. So, if your name doesn't match their spreadsheet,
GOP ain't the only ones.
No, no, but in the case of this, it is mostly Republicans purging people. In Georgia, it certainly was Republicans purging people from the rolls. Oh, wow. Sorry, Ghost Lord. Thank you, but let's take that down. So, if your name doesn't match their spreadsheet just right, you could be purged from a voter roll, lose your ability to vote in the election, which, of course, is a letter to Santa that's already rigged 6 ways to Sunday. Allegedly. You wouldn't be notified before. You would find out only when you go to try to vote. Then they'll hand you an absentee ballot or one of those provisional ballots that don't actually count. Dissent says, I highly encourage everyone reading this to search up their state's nonpartisan voter protection hotline number and have that number written down when you go to vote in the coming election. This will be your advocate. Again, if you believe in the sham that is voting in this electoral system. But I digress.
Yep.
None of the above. Even more disturbing, when Dissent looked into No Ink, the company that Leyendecker built to run voter verification for our elections, she found that one town, Oak Grove, had raised serious safety concerns and made the legal choice to go back to paper ballots. Instead of support, they got threats of felony charges from officials, all because they didn't want to rely on Leyendecker's poll pads with blaring cybersecurity flaws. If you have to coerce people into using a product, there's something wrong. Seriously wrong. All right? Project Minnesota first raised serious concerns about No Ink's electronic poll pads, which are used in over 71 counties across Minnesota and 37 states nationwide. You see, these iPads connect to the internet and transmit voter data in real time, creating what the project describes as a vulnerability for precision cheating at the precinct level. That doesn't mean hacking an entire election at once. It means using tools like No Ink's poll pads to make small, targeted changes in real time. Because these devices are connected to the internet, can be updated in real time, and are linked to state voter rolls, someone with access could quietly flag certain voters as inactive, delay their check-in, or assign them the wrong ballot, all without leaving an obvious trace. Again, there's a lot more. Well, there's not that much. There is a lot more to this article. So I'm going to encourage everyone to go read this. Again, the integrity of our electoral software is at stake. Now, we would contend that they had no integrity to begin with. This just further confirms that.
Yep.
Right? So paper ballots we thought are good, right? Even Leyendecker knows paper's best, which is why Liberty Vote says it will implement the use of paper ballots, even said in their press release that they'll have third-party audits, which sounds fantastic. These are both two tried and true methods of making sure elections are fair and free. But that's until you find out that the RNC has been quietly funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars into preparing election integrity teams to show up at polling places to conduct surveillance and do third-party audits and hand counts. Third party being themselves, naturally. And they're still inviting people to sign up to join their team, all while they're bragging that they're already over 100,000 strong. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Okay. According to the GOP website, the RNC sent out these teams last year too, but this coming election cycle, remember, they're following Trump's new rules. They aren't legal, but the rules are that's exactly what these integrity teams will be watching and attempting to enforce. Insane. If a foreign government had this level of control over our elections, we'd call it an act of war. But because it's a team of Trump allies, we're told it's all legal. And what's funny, again, is if Democrats were doing this on the other side, Republicans would be screeching about this, but they're awfully silent. Again, they told us the elections were rigged. Then they stole copies. Then they bought the machines. Then they bought the check-in system. Then they wrote the rules. Then they started purging voters. Then they started showing up with surveillance teams and calling it integrity. Again, Scott Leyendecker now controls the machines that verify who gets to vote and the machines that get to count those votes. He says he'll enforce Trump's new executive order, even though parts of it have already been blocked by a federal judge. The RNC says they'll show up to audit and make sure your vote meets Trump's standards. This isn't a theory. It's happening. The infrastructure is already in place. The purge lists are already being built. The auditors are already registering. And the person who decides if you get a ballot and whether that ballot gets counted just happens to be the same man backed by the same machine promising to follow the same illegal order. And he's got voting machines in 37 states and growing. They don't need tanks. They don't need the Insurrection Act. But I'm sure that's not something that they've ruled out. All they needed are contracts, code, and silence. Because if they can control who votes, and as Stalin very famously said, how the votes are counted and who gets to audit the results, then we're not talking about democracy anymore. But of course, we know that we didn't really have a democracy to begin with. We're talking about a simulation, one where the outcome was never in your hands. Guess what? That's been the case. If we let this slide, we don't lose just one election. We'll lose the ability to choose anything at all. And again, so what do? Here are some things you actually can do. Solutions. Start local. This machine works because it's hidden in plain sight, buried in your county board of elections, in your city council meetings, and your state house backrooms. Show up. Speak up. Demand paper poll books. Demand real audits. Demand transparency in every contract involving no ink, Dominion, which again is now Liberty Vote. Don't forget that. Or any private vendor for that matter. Transparency is key. Call your local county election office. Ask them directly. Are you using no ink poll pads? Are you using Dominion or Liberty Vote machines? Who supplies them? Are audits conducted by independent groups or insiders? So one of those insiders include Pro V&V because we know they're problematic. Join your local board of elections. Every county has one. Many seats are left empty. They're counting on your absence. Fill that seat. Become an election worker or an observer. Usually those are much older people. It's very difficult to do that, especially if you're working or younger. Screenshot everything. If you know someone's purged or delayed, given the wrong ballot, see a manufacturing malfunction or machine malfunction, document it. The system survives by burying and memory holing that evidence. Super Tuesday 2020, there were a ton of anomalies and irregularities, most of which got memory holed. One of the things had to do with the exit polling, which is something I'm going to talk about in a little bit, funny enough. All right. Blow the whistle. Organize. Don't just vote. Help others check their registration now and again before Election Day. If someone is purged, act fast. Many of these purges are happening in real time. And then blow the whistle. Again, you can do it legally, do it now, or contact her there. She set up a signal number and chat for people. So support Dissent in Bloom. She's doing great work really here. And she did this article about Aspen Martin, Halo Benson's daughter. She wrote an article about Natalia Vlechkova. That's the woman in Ohio related to Anthony Malecki. But she's also writing articles about what Trump is doing authoritarianism-wise. She wrote about Venezuela this week. She's writing about a lot of stuff. So subscribe, dissentinbloom.substack.com, and support independent media, like I always say. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. We'll see you next week. Love you, fam. Thanks, everyone.
Hasta la vista, baby. I'll be back.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want?